Hey, Biosattva. Thank you for responding to my video. I listened to your video, and I pretty much agree with everything that you're saying, which is I find to be interesting in and of itself. But you're describing how life is very, I guess you could say it's very, it's permeating. It's very, one thing is interconnected to another thing, becomes another thing. We're connected to the first um, I guess, Precambrian life forms, the very first life form to today. It's all part of this interconnected, very much connected process. And in that sense, I totally agree. Actually, I very much like to read about evolution and the origins of life and how it's all just so amazingly intricate and interconnected to this day. I mean, we have things that um, we're here since the very beginning. Some basic designs to, even the way we grow up in the womb, it goes through different stages that resemble different um, evolutionary advancements throughout the history of the planet and of Earth, of life. And it just reminded me of a story, not a story, but a description of Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Zen uh, Buddhist philosopher, not really a philosopher, but he's a monk. He's pretty famous. What he said about death was, what is death really? There is no such thing as death. There's only a change. There's no such thing as the death of a cloud. It becomes something else. It becomes the rain. It dissipates. Condensation. There's only change, and that's all it simply is. And the label of death as some kind of end and some kind of ultimate blackness or something that we're so afraid of is just imaginary. I mean, yes, there is a technical end to the cloud being a cloud or a human being's life being a human being's life, but everything is so connected. Our life goes into other things. And even if you want to go back before the beginning of life on Earth, there was stardust. I mean, a lot of the chemical compounds that make us were created from supernovas and giant stars, so we couldn't be here without giant star supernovas. So it's one just great interconnected, cyclical, um, I don't know, just existence, really. And I totally, actually, agree with all of that, really, and it's quite amazing, and it's very describable. And yes, but yet, I can still also see how somebody can see reincarnation as a way to escape the fear that of this conceptual death, this great blackness that seems to be at the end of everyone's life, this change that we can't fathom if we see it as that. Yeah, I would agree that a lot of people use reincarnation to sort of escape that fear. But I don't know if reincarnation is the source of that fear. Or rather, I don't know if reincarnation is a creation to escape, or if it's just a scapegoat that has some truth to it. And I only say this because, at least to me, reincarnation isn't an escape of my own end. I mean, whoever I am, it's a strange paradox, because if you look at reincarnation, it's not like we remember past lives per se, except some people claim to. But even if we did, we don't remember. There is no continuation. We seem to be completely and wholly other people. So to me, it just seems like reincarnation can be seen as another form of interconnection at a spiritual level. A transience of different forms and different lives and different life forms, different modes of being. It's almost like a transience of consciousness, of a great collective flowing in and then emerging into here and now and then dissipating. I mean, some people liken it to going to sleep and waking up again. It's sort of like, yeah, it does end and it arises again, and it ends and arises again, but I don't know if they're saying that just to escape the fear of death. I don't know if that really was it. I can't claim to know either way, but at least to me, reincarnation is a way to see another form of interconnection, another form to see how all of this life, this whole universe is a part of one another, both physically and spiritually, and how the physical and the spiritual somehow are interconnected. So, I don't know, I find myself in a strange position where I can totally, I don't know if it's necessarily strange, but I can totally agree with what you're saying. But at the same time, I can see how, um, living multiple lifetimes isn't really a continuation of a self that's right here and of me, who I am. There is a death. There is a specific end and a transience to something new. Um, it's still a death that we have to go through and an end of a life. So yes, there. I think there is a conceptual um, escapism that reincarnation gives people. It lets people abuse it and use it as that. Oh, I don't want to end. Then oh well, it's okay. Believe in reincarnation. You'll be born again in another life, and you'll have all the comforts of a home and all of that again and again. Um, I could see how that's appealing, although I've never really thought of it like that. I mean, I've acknowledged it, but to me, it's reincarnation is just sort of you don't have to believe in reincarnation for it to happen, sort of thing. It just seems like a way of life, another transience, another um, stardust creating life, creating other life. This flow, this continuous flow between all things. To me, it's almost like a spiritual flow. And I know, sort of repeating myself, but I'm just trying to articulate it a little bit uh, better. It's almost like a spiritual continuity or ecology in which energy or something transforms and becomes something else and becomes something else. And yes, some things are retained, but not in the sense of a concealed self. Um, Not in that sense at all. I mean, even in Buddhism, they do acknowledge that the self is ultimately illusory. So even if there was reincarnation, who is there to be born again? Um, but the self does exist at a relative level, I suppose. I guess I should be going too much into a sidetrack to really get into, but um, I don't know. It just seems to me that even the self has an end, even if it has multiple lifetimes, even if we don't remember these lifetimes, even if we can only grasp hints of it and find interconnections with our friends and our family and see underlying patterns. I mean, there are multiple reasons to believe in reincarnation, and I think what you brought up was a very valid reason and explanation for a lot of people's belief systems. Although I don't think it totally describes the phenomena itself. Now I know some people would probably argue that reincarnation has some validation behind it. People being able to say things they were not able to know before. Little children being able to do stuff, to know such details that would never be possible unless they were this other person. I don't really want to get into that, only because I don't know. It's very interesting to look at. It has some interesting aspects to it, but I don't think it's definable as of yet. And the fact that, and even going a little bit further to a more talked about point of view, a lot of people have been trying to discuss reincarnation um, in regards to consciousness and understanding what consciousness is. Although it's too difficult to talk about, really, because we haven't really been able to make a science of observing consciousness, let alone knowing what it is. So it really comes down to discussions like this that you and I are having, are really the only way to really talk about it, which is something I at least appreciate, because we can have these open discussions. Um, Whether or not science will ever be able to talk about it, I don't know. I would hope so eventually. I mean, some people are really trying to demonstrate that consciousness has some kind of quantum relationship. It has something to do with what we know about quantum mechanics, but we haven't fully unearthed it yet. Remove the veil, so to speak, to really understand what consciousness is, and whether or not it may have different lifetimes, sort of like we fall in and out of sleep and go through these cycles and seasons. But I guess to sum it up, to me, consciousness, or reincarnation, rebirth, it's a part of this great ecology that is just as complex and just as a part of the natural universe. But yes, thank you for your response video, and